Hello everyone, and welcome back to another WARNO patch preview. This time for the long-awaited and long time coming Grouchy Milestone, which will bring us Army General. We covered this already in other videos, so check those out if you haven't seen them yet. But it also brings us a lot of other stuff. In fact, it is most likely the longest patch note we will ever get in early access, and most likely for the whole lifespan of the game, because there's a lot of changes in this patch. We have a new map, we have a lot of division reworks, we have a lot of unit reworks, and we're gonna start with those. And we're gonna just jump here into the tank tab, and you will already start to see some changes here. Challengers went down to 18 frontal armor and 18 penetration, for example. Went down in price as well. Challenger Mark III still on 20 penetration. They get the better ammo, so a bit more differentiation between these two. But in general, a lot of armor values have gone up for all the lower end tanks to separate them more from IFVs, and and a couple of the higher end tanks have gone down a bit to represent differentiations between those tanks as well. Challengers, for example, were such tanks that got slightly lower armor value. Chieftains now on 18 penetration as well. So, yeah, that is the beginning here. Meanwhile, T-34 up to 6 frontal armor, up to 45 points as well, though. So I'm not quite sure if this is really a buff for them, because they were all about being cheap. We also got some new units. We're going to talk about that a bit more later on. The T-54 KDA getting a new unit here. T-54 and 55 now up to 11 armor. So that's one of those where it really makes a big difference compared to the live version before. And this really is a big difference for these units, as they can now tank ATGMs and survive frontally. Like even... Oh, only TOW 2 can one-shot kill them. Everything else has too little penetration to one-shot kill them frontally. So T-55A is really strong. T-55 AM2's even stronger. Nothing can one-shot kill these from the front. And no ATGM can, with 14 frontal armor. Went up in price as well. So in general, tank prices will make tanks a bit more sparsely, even the lower end ones, but they will be stronger. There will be more separation between them and the IFV branch in that regard, which is good changes. Also gives all of these tanks here a bit of survivability against the highest end tanks, and makes divisions that rely on such tanks like the T-55M2, like 4th Mordschützen, for example, a lot more potent, and can give them more playstyle options as well. So I like these changes to the T-55 AM2s and so on as well. T-72 already was one of the tanks that got their reworks, so not much changes here, just some slight price adjustment to the family. The M1 family got slight armor increases. Penetration is the same. Accuracy changes have been, accuracy has been figured out across the board as well. M1's actually all on the highest end of accuracy, so that's why also the prices went up here, because they're pretty accurate now, and they also they really do their job quite nicely there. Frontal armor here of the M1A1 went up by 1 as well, so they are now on par with the Challenger in that regard. The Challenger Mark III, if you compare them, Challenger Mark III only has the advantage of having the reactive armor, the explosive reactive armor there, but it has less rate of fire and is a bit slower. So M1A1 really strong, but also a bit more pricey now. M1A1HA, super strong, obviously, 22, 21, really big beast. IP here with 18 frontal armor, the package, so pretty beefy boy as well now. And yeah, Sheridan still at 3, because it's not really a tank, but M60 up to 12 frontal armor here. This is quite the beefy boy now as well for such a tank. So yeah, few things that can damage this hard. Leo's obviously still lightly armored in comparison to other tanks, but at least went up to 9 as well. Leo 1A1 though has the issue of going down in range. That's why it's also still pretty cheap compared to all the other tanks that went up in price, because with the adjustments to fire control systems and so on, and the standardization there, it went down to 1925 meter range, leaving it quite short-sighted and short-ranged. So 17 penetration, still pretty good for gun, for tank of this battle rating. It's one higher, for example, than the T55A. It also has better accuracy, so it's still a decent weapon if you get in range, but getting in range and surviving there is the tough part with the Leo 1A1s here now. As 9 frontal armor really leaves you vulnerable at those ranges against most other tanks as well. Leo 1A5 at least gets a bit further away and still has great accuracy. So this one is still a good sniper from afar, decent penetration, great accuracy there, but the 9 frontal armor helps out on those ranges a bit more than it does when you get a bit closer, because the penetration stacking doesn't hit as hard there, so the extra 2 frontal armor here, nice, but the price is accordingly high. Whilst the Leo 2A3 went the other way around, they went a bit down in armor, both the 2A3 and the 2A4 slightly down, went cheaper as well, which is nice in that regard, but they also lost their perfect stabilization, which in my eyes was a cool gameplay feature. I kind of get why it was done, but I really felt like it was a cool gimmick to have a unit like this that played a bit different when you used it, and it's unfortunate that this has been removed, because I'm always gameplay over historical accuracy at such points. So, like, obviously the base stats should come around somewhat, but giving some units unique characteristics to be used with and played with was cool. Leo 2A3s and 2A4 unfortunately lost that now. 2A4 obviously also a bit more accuracy, great penetration, so still a good unit, just not as unique anymore as it has been before. M48s went up in frontal armor as well. 10 frontal armor makes them survivable against most ATGMs, and survive a good couple of tank shots as well out there. So these really doing their job as well, and they are both now pretty nice for TKS as the mass spam. You get them in other divisions still as well. T62 M1 went up to 14 frontal armor, so really beefy boys now as well. Pretty comparable to the T55 in that regard, but better penetration. Low rate of fire, still an issue for these guys. But the MV, by the way, only 11 frontal armor, but it has the era trait, so that's the trade-off there, where I feel like it gets the short end of the stick. I'd rather have 3 frontal armor more than those bricks. But it's, in general, a pretty cool unit now for KDA only, though. 39th lost it. We will go over that in the division reworks. And yeah, T80B went up to 17 frontal armor to be the same frontal armor as the BV, which just makes perfect sense. Went up in price a lot as well for it. So T80B series now pretty pricey, pricier than the Leo 2A3s. So that's something to keep in mind here. Pretty much on par with the M1 A1s and M1 IPs and so on. So these are really the higher end tanks now, and 39th and 79th will have to pay quite a lot to get their tanks onto the battlefield. And then down here, we don't have many armor changes in the BMP and BMD series, but one that is interesting, Chieftains, by the way, here, quite nice. TO55 obviously went up as well. Kanonjagdpanzer going up to 6 frontal armor, that is nice. And then you have the Jaguar 1 and Jaguar 2 on 6 frontal armor as well, which is a nice buff to these units for the West Germans, as they got reduced in the Leo 2s, but they at least got the Jaguars here now, which already were usable before on these new prices they have. And now with 6 frontal armor, they can survive a couple of shots on long range from some tanks. Like, they don't instantly die, and that makes them a lot more scary. Jaguar 2 play we will see quite a bit whenever we see these divisions around that have them. I would argue, I would predict for future tournament play. Jaguar 2 now a really good vehicle, as 5 frontal armor already was nice on Bradleys and so on, but 6 is really nice here. So really looking forward to that. The Jaguars and the Kanonjagdpanzer will be quite interesting. And so let's move on. So before we jump into the divisions, a real quick shout out to the artillery changes. The Lars and the ARM-70 and the Grad now have cheaper rocket prices. So they went down from 1,600 to 800 resupply, so half of the supply cost. So these are now a lot cheaper to resupply and making them a lot more intriguing to use, both on the map in Army General and also in multiplayer. So they are really good units now as well, and absolutely usable next to the more expensive but harder hitting units like, for example, the Buratino and so on. So those are these changes, and let's jump into division changes and let's go through the list, as there are a lot of them here. We will start with the NATO changes, and there we start with 11th Cav. We only gonna jump into the decks where it's big changes, because otherwise we will be here all day. But 11th Cav gets an extra card of the M2A2 Bradley CV, so they have a bit better Bradleys now, the 5 frontal armor ones, a bit more of those, which is nice, because that's a pretty unique unit for them, and a pretty important unit as well. Together with the buffs to the Jaguar and so on, that should give this division a nice boost. And then 11th DP, which is the French Airborne Division, which is down here. They got some changes to their Milan numbers, and which got reduced slightly, but on the other side, they got a buff to their AA, as they got more numbers now of the Mistral again. It's 6 per card instead of 4 per card now, which is really important. And also, the Sagai, their little vehicle, the tank in here, the ARC-90 Sagai, is now a lot better, because it has 2275 meter range instead of 2100, and it has 2 instead of 1 frontal armor. So this thing here now is basically a discount MX-10 RC, and this makes it a lot scarier, which makes 11th now the best paratrooper division in the armored sector, because 82nd and 35th now have no tanks left, and they here now have this little vehicle, which is pretty cool. So let's move on to the next division on the list, which is first UK Armored. This one got changes to its recon tab. The Fox is gone, but it got 1 extra card of Scimitars and 1 extra card of Scorpion, differentiating it a bit more from the recon tab of Berliner Command and especially 2nd Infantry Division. So the Foxes are here now, whilst they in 1st Armored now have the Scimitar and Scorpion, the tracked recon vehicles to rely on. 24th got a couple of nerfs. Here it's less about the units themselves, but more about just nerfing the division. They lost 1 point tank slot, so they have a bit fewer tanks. One of their recon slots got a bit more expensive. They lost the Kiowa Warrior, and the Strike Eagle went from base veterancy 2 to base veterancy 1, and the National Guard M1 Abrams went down from base availability 7 to 6, though obviously it also got a stats buff, so that might still be fine at that end. And the next division on the list is the 2nd Panzer Grenadier, which got the Mars removed. It got its Harriers replaced by Belgium planes now. They have Belgium F-16s here now, with 6 AM-9Ps. And as they have the 2 weapon slots for these, they are the perfect shotgun now. They can fire 2 at a time, so these are really strong air superiority fighters for the closer combat. Unfortunately, F-16 is still a bit slow. Hopefully that will go up in the future. They also got a Mirage here now, as they lost the Ginas and the Harriers and gained these units instead, which is quite nice. Yeah, those are the changes here. Together with, obviously, the buffs and so on to the tanks, this division will be playing a bit different. So, gonna be interesting how that will perform. And then next on the list is 3rd US Armored, which lost its mech rifles in the infantry tab. No more mech rifles here. It also lost one slot helicopter slot, so it only has 3 of those now. And got a cheaper artillery slot though. 1 3 post went to a 2 cost there. And one of the tank slots also became from 3 to 2, so that's all 2 cost slots now. Yeah. They also got some more Fireteam Law and Fireteam Dragons, but they don't have any big infantry squads here anymore, outside of arrow rifles. So all the other ones are small infantry slots, squads, so you will have to be careful with your infantry and 3rd US, which is a nice weakness for a deck that otherwise has few of them. So, really cool one. And then also, they are the first of the divisions here on the list that have the new kind of helicopter here, with the jammer helicopter, the EH-60 quick fix here. And the jammer capability is pretty cool, a new feature in the game, which allows you, first of all, high ECM, and then it also allows you to jam enemy recon radios. So every unit with GSR, with the ground surveillance radar, and every vehicle with excellent optics gets lowered down to very good optics. And it also removes the buff that artillery receives from recon close by. So the enemy doesn't have accurate artillery in the area of this as well. It's around the 3,500 meter radius, so big change there as well. And yeah, this brings us to 5th Panzer, which has a lot of changes. 5th Panzer really got handed the short end of the stick in my eyes. It got some cheaper tank slots, though yeah, it can use the same kind of vehicles here. It lost its Panzer its Marder 183 as it now only has Marder 182s. Marder 183s only in 11th ACR to a low number, and then obviously in 2nd Panzer Grenadier in the bigger number. It lost the M110 artillery pieces. It still has the Mars and the Lars, which with the Lars now being more capable, this should be interesting. And it has the Mars over the 2nd Panzer Grenadier. It lost the Apaches though, which is a big nerf to its capabilities of dealing with units in the rear. F-16 seat also gone, so no seat plane here left. 5th Panzer, I'm not the biggest fan of this. Alpha Jet rocket also gone. Yeah, those moved elsewhere. We'll get to that in a second. They got an extra card of Leo 2A3s and an extra card of BOH over here. And then they also got a new rocket F4F, which is pretty nicely priced, I guess. But the Alpha Jet rocket was still a bit more efficient usually for the rear line. They have big Zuni rockets. They are a bit better than they have been a couple of patches ago, but I'm still not a massive fan of the Zunis. We will see how good this goes. At least the availability is good, so it might be good enough compensation here. We will see how the F4F goes. 30 ECM at least is nice on these. So that's an interesting change here. And then we go to another division that has changed quite a lot, which is the 82nd Airborne. As 82nd Airborne lost its armored detachment, it also lost its FOB, together with like the other airborne formations as well. And yeah, no M1IP anymore here. No mortar, like self-driving mortars anymore. Those got removed. The Bradley got removed, but they got 2 new units in replacement for that. And those are pretty cool. First of all, the really new cool unit here is the M1047 LAV. The love is here. And it's a good vehicle. It is super fast, 90 kilometers off-road. It can be really used for mobile warfare here. And the Bushmaster, on top of it, is a good autocannon as well. So, a really good autocannon vehicle. Obviously, it doesn't have the TOW2 capabilities that you had with the Bradley, but it can be really nice for ambushes and so on. I feel like the price might be slightly too high. I would like to see this thing going to 60 or 65. But for now, this is a pretty cool unit. And then you also have the M551 ACAV here, which is a Sheridan in the recon capability, which doesn't have the ATGM, but it has some extra weapons instead, with some 50 cals and so on. So this is a pretty nice little vehicle as well. It doesn't have the Shellac, but it gives you a recon Sheridan for your Sheridan force as well. So that's pretty nice changes. Recon slots also got, like they got a cheaper recon slot here. 1+3 tank slot got removed. Yeah, so that is a nice one. Also, Little Bird now got the Special Forces trait with highest veterancy. This actually might allow them to make drive-by shooting happen somewhat. Not really. If the aim time would be going a bit lower, it really might be the case. At the moment, I'm still a bit skeptical about it, but the accuracy buff and so on out of the Special Forces is really nice. So Little Bird on Special Force is an interesting one. We will see how this goes. I still believe it should go higher, but it's a cool new change here. A Special Force helicopter is something we haven't seen before. So, nice idea. hopefully gets pushed further. And then we go over to TKS, one of my favorite divisions, and it got a lot of changes. Next to M48s now being a lot beefier, it got a new version of the Jaeger, the normal Jaeger, without any AT weapons. Price-wise, not really there to compete. A second version, though, with Carl Gustav. That is interesting, giving a pretty capable Jaeger squadron here. So Jaegers here, quite solid. I hope these will go down to 40 or maybe even 35 points. At this price range, they are just not worth taking over other Jaeger squadrons. Or maybe go up to 12 and then to 40, that would be the best. But you also get a new little vehicle here, which is a M113 with a Milan on top for 25 points. Good price point, I would say. Decent price point there. And getting an extra Milan here on the battlefield can be nice. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's a nice addition here to TKS. So these new units are nice. And then it got a big rework to its air tab. It received all the rear end units, which makes sense because this is supposed to be the division that fights enemy breakthroughs in the rear, where the enemy has little air coverage, and there you don't need the best units, whilst sending Alpha Jets and Ginas to the forefront with 5th Panzer and so on would be rather suicidal. So having the Ginas and Alpha Jets here makes sense. We'll see how that plays out gameplay-wise. I believe it can be quite nice, especially with the Gina here as a spam plane. That can help out mitigating your issue of not having any helicopters here. Might make this deck even more of a rush deck. We'll see. They have the M104 instead of the F4F now as a fighter here. So yeah, that's pretty similar. So we'll see how this goes. Mirage is still here. The French helping out a bit is nice. So nice changes here. TKS will be still a pretty cool division. And yeah, that is it for NATO. Also, let's move over to the Pact. And there we start with a move of the Buratino from 79th to 119th. The only change to 119th, it got the Buratino now. 79th lost it there. In 27th though, we have a couple of other changes. They lost the BMP-2D as a vehicle, but they got a good upgrade for it. You already have the AG here, so the BMP-2D, not so important here. They moved to 79th. Instead, they got the BMP-3. So a bit of moving around of IFVs here, and BMP-3 makes perfect sense here. This is the Division 90 model unit, and having the highest end BMP-3, the new one in the family, added to the division that has all the cool, the fancy stuff that is trying to be the model for upcoming Soviet units in the 90s. It just makes sense. So BMP-3 here makes sense. Also, it makes sense gameplay-wise because 39th was a bit too strong. 27th was maybe slightly underperforming. And it's still the one with the gimmicks, but low numbers of tanks and a bit expensive. So you won't be able to spam these BMP-3s here as much as you were able to do it on 39th. So good change there in that regard. Yeah, outside of that, no real changes here. In 35th, we air assault. We have one new unit. Obviously, this division got all its major reworks done last time, but the Rechvetka, the DSH here, got a new real cool transport. The first Mi-24D transport in the game, and it's pretty pricey, but it gives you rockets, it gives you a gun, and you can use it on forward deploy if you want to do a real big stack with some good forward deploy infantry. The RPG-26 is pretty solid. The squadron in general pretty solid as well. Together with the Mi-24Ks and the Mi-24Ds, you can make a real big helicopter plop now at the start. It's not super strong, but it is a nice meme that you can do now. A lot of forward deploy helicopters here. So yeah, 35th gets a bit more in what it is supposed to be strong at. I like that, giving it really that airborne feeling that it is supposed to have. 39th got a lot of changes, mostly nerfs. It got lost at the T-62s, so you are relying on TADBs and BVs as your tanks, so no cheap tanks here anymore. And then in the infantry tab, your options in BMPs both were downgraded by one, basically. The BMP-3 removed here, the BMP-2 removed from the normal Motostrelki, so you are really the more basic Soviet division now, which this division was supposed to represent in the first place. And yeah, you have now a lot of BMP2s and BMP1s, so and the BMP1s by now are somewhat capable. They have been buffed over the last couple of patches enough that I would say they are here to fight. So this is an interesting change as well. Can use a truck option as transport as well if you want to, though usually I don't think you want. In the helicopter recon tab, you have the second jammer unit here, pretty similar to what we saw with Black Orc. 8 hit points, ECM 40. It can jam enemy units on the front. Looks pretty dope as well. I hope they buff the optics of these eventually. At normal optics, that's the one big error I see with these. Push it up to 60 points, give them very good optics, and this is a perfectly fine unit. Would still have lower optics than the other Mi-8s, but they would have the other buffs, so it would be an idea of which to take here, instead of just taking the Mi-8 MTA most of the time now anyways, because the slots here are too valuable to fill it in with a recon unit that doesn't give you a recon. Recon is too important for that. Helicopter-wise, you get another +1 slot. You also get another Mi-24P card, but they lost one of the AA helicopters here, I believe. It might not have been the case yet. They still have 2. Don't think they had 3 before, so that might still be to come. Yeah, they outside of that didn't really have much changes here. Yeah, in 4th Modschützen, on the other hand, we have a good couple of changes as well, as they have a new kind of plane. The 4th Modschützen down here. Now, just like in the Army General campaign, doesn't rely on the Su-22 anymore, which both it and the 7th Panzer relied upon, making the air tab pretty similar. They instead now, as their ground attack aircraft, have a MiG-23 version, the MiG-23 BN, with the wings folded back, and a really fast plane. Really, really fast plane, same as the MiG-21. So, also only 10 ECM, which is not great, but everything else about these is pretty strong. They have pretty cheap prices. They have solid bomb loads here. You have 500 kilograms instead of 4 250 kilogram bombs here, so double the payload in comparison to the MiG-21, for example. Here, the rockets are quite juicy as well. 2 big ones, 240 millimeters, and a good couple of small ones here. Cluster one with a lot of cluster bombs as well. The AT is not great because it has low accuracy, but it has a nice attack angle. It has some rockets as well. Like these are interesting attack planes. I like the addition here. Your seed plane is still an Su-22. Outside of that, you are a MiG-23 BN1 now. With the price, with the availability, these are pretty good planes. I like the change a lot because it differentiates the division more from the 7th, which is a good move to make this division more interesting. Outside of that, they got a bit of changing in the costs of their prices for their slots. Obviously, T-55 buffs also will be interesting here, but yeah, just a couple of slot changes. Artillery removed one 2-cost slot here. They added one 2-point recon slot instead, and such changes. Logistics, one 3-cost slot became a 2-cost slot, and one 1-point tank slot became a 2-point tank slot. So just a couple of changes there, nothing too important. And then 79th, where we already talked about that they lost the Buratino. They, outside of that, also lost, are really a tank division now, because they don't have any BTR transports anymore. They are now BMPs or GAZ, and focus should be BMPs. So you have the BMP-2D now. They got pushed over here with the extra side armor. You should just take this usually over the normal BMP-2. Doesn't have amphibious, but amphibious plays a little role usually, and the extra rear and side armor is nice. So, yeah, Motostrelki RPG 22 here, quite nice. Motostrelki BMP with the BMP-2 here, nice as well. But you are a bit slower than other divisions. Outside of that, one of your 3-cost tank slot became a 2-cost tank slot, so you can get a bit more there. But one of your 1-point air slots became a 2-cost air slot, so you have a little bit fewer air units. It was the same air slot cost as in 39th, so a bit of a differentiation there as well now, making those two divisions a bit more different, which is nice. Also, the Mi-24 AA got removed here, making that a thing as well. 7th Panzer only got one more extra card of Ural supply cards, so that is not too important. KDA, on the other hand, though, that one is a big one, and like a lot of changes here. All Phobos and Spetsnaz removed, but they got a lot of other stuff instead. First of all, KDA down from 50 to 45 points, good change there. Could even argue for 40 in the far future, but we will see. But they got a couple of other extra infantry units. Reservisten SMGs with 3 PKMs, interesting unit. Can give nice fire support. Pushing them together with other units can be interesting. And then you got down here the new military police unit of the Soviets with a new little truck as well, which is pretty cool. The Gus 66B there. And they are actually here as a really strong infantry unit. Like, veteran seed-wise, you can have two choices here. And they have a Dragunov, they have 2 PKMs, 10-man squad, so this is quite a powerful infantry unit, and obviously you want to combine them with KDA Schützen, so, and especially with the KDA Schützen to fight their disheartened trait. And then this is a pretty strong blob. Not having any stronger anti-tank anymore with losing the Spetsnaz OP is a bit of an issue here, but your tank slot has improved for it. You got all the 3 T62M options now, the M1, M, and MV, so you have a good bit more tanks in that regard. T55s got replaced with T54Bs. I wish they would be a bit cheaper. If there would be 60 points, I think these would be quite nice as infantry support, helping out against IFVs and co. So this is pretty cool changes here. And they also got some changes in their artillery tab. They replaced the RM70s with BM24B M here. Really big rockets. Old rocket launcher here, fitting the theme of this division as well. Getting some old stuff once more. And it's a cool old unit here. Like, big rocket boys coming in for this division. Pretty cheap to reload as well, so this should be quite nice. Outside of that, the 82mm mortar is new as well, if you want to have some smaller stuff there. And they also got a KDA Aufklärer now, which has no AT weapon. Comes super cheap though, so you can spam recon quite cheaply out onto the battlefield. So that is a nice option here as well. And you also get the ZPU-4 AA, which is pretty trash though. The range is too low to really do any difference, so... but yeah, you still got ZSU-23s here, which is just better. And obviously you have this big boy, which is a lot better. Books. Like, I don't think these will play a role, but if you want to have a 15-point ground support unit, has their ground support range is actually quite nice, then this might be the thing. Like, if you feel like you don't need the AA slot at all, you want to have a unit that can support your infantry units, then the ZPU-4 might be your unit for this. Yep, this is it with division changes. So, yeah, this is still a really, really long patch in that regard. And yeah, let's have a look on the new map and finish it off there. And before we load into the map, one other really cool feature now for all maps is that you can choose ambience for them. And every single one has an option for different lighting now, between morning, afternoon, night. So if you don't like night maps, and that kept you off from playing the ones that had night as their default before, you can now switch them off to better lighting. And if you want to have night fights on everything, you can have now night fights on everything. And we're gonna jump into the lovely morning on Hesse, the new map, which is a really, really cool map. I hope it will make it into ranked. Maybe not quite in this version, because the points are a bit too many, but in a as a 2v2 game version, this is really cool. And then for 1v1, I could see this in the future as well. And as you can see, it has railway tracks, and it has a big, big railway track. Like, this is maybe the biggest railway line I have seen in Germany. It's a bit overkill. Like, I know few places where we have 6 lines next to each other. I guess French developers overestimate German railway there. I mean, yes, we have decreased since the 80s a bit, but it wasn't even back then it wasn't this phenomenal. Uh, but it's cool, and the system with this breaking the map in two basically is really cool. The barn dam in the middle, and then you have this countryside area over here with a good bit of destruction, and then on the other side you have the big town with a good bit of destruction as well, and a lot of city fights here. As you can see, the line of sights here a lot more broken. The ruins allow for some longer line of sights, but outside of that, it's a bit of a grind fest over here, which makes it interesting to push here, but it doesn't give you a massive advantage here. And if you invest too much there, and then the enemy can push you here, you're like, it's a lot of cool gameplay on this map. I really enjoy it. It gives every division something to do, and it's great map design. Map design team for sure has come a long way, and yeah, that's a really cool change. Ranked reset also will happen with this patch. I'm looking forward to it. I hope they make map rank pools and so on even cooler in the future with some tombstone mechanics where you can see your highest rank in a season and so on. Yeah, all of that already pitched to the Eugen devs. They said it would be cool as well. Hopefully it comes eventually. We will see about that. And yeah, if you have any more ideas and any more feedback about this, let me know down below. This video already has been long enough, so we will end it here. A lot of other smaller changes to divisions and so on that I might have missed will be there, so check out the patch log when it comes on Tuesday. And until then, hope you have a good one. See you next time. Bye-bye.